Okay, let us reconvene our meeting, and we are going to turn the meeting over to our two-year Education and Community College Committee with Chair Kraus.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll convene this meeting, and I think we only have one action item, mission review, Helena College UM. I think we're all going to be happy with what we hear, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Seck for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I introduce that topic, I would just like to say a couple of words. First of all, this spring I had the sincere pleasure of participating in 3 commencement ceremonies, MSU Billings, Helena College, and just last week here at Flathead Valley Community College. And each of those ceremonies and the interaction with the students was very rewarding and well done, so thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity and just recognize the great work of the chair of this committee, Jeff Kraus. I've had the pleasure of staffing this committee for the last couple of years with Mr. Kraus, and I can only say that his passion for two-year and community college education is quite infectious. You've done an amazing job, Jeff, and we really appreciate your incredible support with things such as a 2-year mission expansion, dual credit, developmental education reform, and workforce development. So on behalf of the presidents, CEOs, and deans of the 2-year colleges in the state, we'd like to thank you.
Well, thank you, John.
Now, Mr. Chair, as you requested, it's my pleasure to introduce the action item for today. As you know, the new Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities 7-year accreditation review process is centered around the eligibility requirements that are basic conditions that the college has to meet for accreditation standards. Central to this process are the mission, core themes, and expectations. The campus mission is often thought of as a contract with the college's constituents and a promise to their students. The campus mission is central to all campus planning and self-evaluation. In fact, everything grows from the mission, the core themes, institutional planning, budgeting, and the institution's ongoing self-evaluation. So it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Dean Bingham, who will provide this board with an overview of Helena College's mission, vision, and core themes.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Commissioner, it's really a pleasure to be here to talk about probably my favorite topic. Like President Karras, I could go on and on and on and talk about some of the great things that are happening at Helena College. What I've done is taken the liberty of stealing from Dean Wolf her presentation, and for consistency's sake, just popped our stuff in there so that it would all look similar in the same sense we have a connection in our two-year educational processes and goals, objectives. I'm going to just spend a few moments on each one of these slides because I know you can all read and I don't need to labor over what's here in the slides here. This tells you the two-year education connection and where we sit within the institution of systems across the state of Montana. On the far left-hand side, when you look at the MUS side, I'd like to include, however, on that also Northern and Western, because they also have two-year educational programs. Now, they're not specifically two-year education because of their mission and vision, but they do have those programs, and I like to acknowledge the fact that they are part of that process when it comes to two-year education. A lot of collaboration happens between the MUS, the tribal, and the community colleges, which includes those two institutions also. And then the organizational structure, as you can see here, we're under the Montana State University, where Great Falls College is, and under University of Montana, where we reside. Something to remember here that each of these institutions are standalone accredited institutions that we report to the Northwest Accreditation. We are responsible for making sure that we adhere to all the policies and principles of that accreditation. And so both Great Falls College and Helena College have that autonomy and required to make sure that we take care of our budgets, our personnel, students, the hiring, the graduation processes, everything that goes with accreditation, we're required to take care of also. A little bit of demographic that we have at the institution, which will be somewhat similar to what you're going to see across the country. 43% of our students are male and 57% female. It wasn't that many years ago when you would have seen that flip-flop. But right now in two-year education specifically, that's a demographic that is prominent across the country. 39% of our students live at home, and 77% of them have at least a part-time job. So they're working. And when I say part-time job, as President Kara said earlier about one of her students, we're not talking about a part-time job, we're talking about multiple part-time jobs to be able to get through the educational process and pay for their education. One of the reasons why need-based aid is so critically important for this demographic. These students, because at a two-year college we're an open enrollment, we take everybody that comes through the door who wants to start off in education, and many of them would be considered high risk at that time. Our students, as far as taking classes, I'm not going to go over each one of these, but if you take a look under enrolled credit hours and enrolled credit hours on hybrid courses and online courses, you would see about 23% of our students are taking courses that are out of the traditional sense. So we have face-to-face lecture going on, but we have a vast number of our students who are doing a hybrid meaning they may come to that class face-to-face once a week, and then next time within that week, they're doing it online. So they're not always at the campus, which allows them to save some money on childcare, allows them to save money on transportation and other things. We think that's a positive thing for the institution and for our students. And then 13% you see right there are completely online courses, which we have been spending a great deal of time over the last several years to do a better job in increasing that opportunity for our students. As far as employees at the institution, the two I would like to point out is 33 of our employees are full-time faculty, and 127 of our employees are adjunct faculty. Those are part-time individuals who come and teach a class at the institution, one, maybe two classes, not many more than that, but they come and they're specifically involved in a topic, area of expertise. We utilize those individuals in the community, and we also have individuals who teach courses online who might live on the other side of the states, who participate in teaching our students. Now, years ago, there was a big conversation about what was a popular or the proper ratio for adjunct to full-time faculty member. Most states try to get to 70-30, 70% adjunct, 30%, I'm sorry, 60-40, 60% adjunct, 40% full-time. What you're seeing here is about a 70-30, pretty close to 70-30 ratio, which is common for two-year education, two-year colleges across the country. A little bit, I wouldn't say alarming, but it is a sign of what the resources that an institution has in which to employ full-time faculty in teaching courses at a campus. Our available degrees, as you can see there, we have transfer degrees, we have articulation agreements with baccalaureate degrees. We have quite a few of those because we have time and place-bound students who want to get education, want to go beyond the two-year level, and so we've created several partnerships in which to make that happen. We have CASs, AASs, and certificates. That's for workforce readiness. Now, I thought I would bring a little prop here to share with you. I think really typifies what happens at Helena College. and how well our students are actually doing. And this little prop here will specifically talk about or show you what happens in machining programs. However, this is very typical about what happens across the institution in all our programs. So I brought to you, some of you may recognize this, those of you who love to fish. This is a project that was done by our second-year students. It's a fly reel that works very, very well. It has 29 independent parts and 49 parts completely. Now, to make one of these things it's a pretty big deal, but not where we want our students to go. But to make 19 of these, so 19 times 49, has to be made precision well, so every one of those parts are interchangeable with anything anytime they put one of these together. So I thought I'd do is pass that around so you can see this is the extent to where we push our students in our machining program, and it's the extent to which we push our students across the board in all our programs. Whether it's history, math, science, technical programs, we really push the students to excel, to do well, so whether they go into industry or go on to higher education 4-year, they're prepared, they're ready, and they can perform at a very high rate. So I'm going to pass this around, but it's got to come back to me. I realized I shouldn't have left this out on where I was sitting, because when I came back, it wasn't sitting there, and I won't tell you who was trying to steal that, but... Now, it does make noise, okay? So if you're doing that, we'll know who's got it. On top of that, we are also involved in continuing education, and we provide a tremendous amount of continuing education for business and industry, and one of our biggest clients, if I can use that term, is the state of Montana, and we provide a great deal of programming for them, not only in continuing education, but our continuing education program also does credit programming for them. And so those individuals that are the state capital can actually get a degree while they're working, and we do courses on-site or online to help them out. Here's a couple of thoughts with our online courses that help our students to get a baccalaureate degree. You can see that we offer 4 bachelor's degrees through institutions such as Northern and Billings. Those are partnerships that we've created, so our students who are time and place bound can get those degrees without leaving Helena. Now, I go back to the demographic that we have. 57% female, and generally has 1 or 2 children, and it's not easy for them just to pick up and go to another state and finish out a degree. Not very easy. So what we've been trying to do is provide that opportunity for them in Helena, and we do that online. With Montana Tech, we have a program that's actually on our campus for the business program. And in fact, there oftentimes in a given semester or year, we have more business students at our campus for Montana Tech than Montana Tech has on their campus. That's a very popular program, and we are able to help a lot of people get through. There's been some conversations about dual enrollment. The statistics that we have for this year show about 588 dual enrolled students in 11 partnership schools. And we have worked very hard to push this out, to create opportunities for students and remove barriers to the educational process, getting enrolled, getting their grades, making sure that there's quality and integrity in those programs and courses. And the outcome of that has been a steady growth in students participating in dual enrollment. Again, at 588 students for this last year, that is now 1/3 of the head count for Helena College. And that will probably continue to go up. I'd have to say that a majority of those students go on to the university system as opposed to come to Helena College. And because most of those courses they're taking right now are pointed towards a 4-year degree. So I'll just say you're welcome, four-year colleges, for for what we're doing to help you get some students into your college. Scholarships. Now, I mentioned earlier the demographic of our students who receive financial aid. A majority of our students receive some type and kind of financial aid. And without that, a majority of them would be impossible for them to go to school. So need-based aid is extremely important for a two-year college, especially in Helena right now. Well, again, we are an open enrollment institution. We have no barriers to coming in. We bring them in, we assess them, and then we get them moving down the road so that they can be successful and spin out either into vocation or into higher education. I mentioned our partnerships are critical to us. We have a campus advisory council made up of community members. We have program advisory councils. Every one of our programs has an advisory council in which we talk with business and industry to help find out what it is exactly they're wanting. I'll give you an example. On our advisory board for this particular piece of equipment, this reel, our advisory board says we need more CNC prepared, numerically controlled machinists prepared to come into industry. Not only that, they have told us we need them to be CNC prepared with robotics. That's critical. That's where we're going. We need you to prepare them to come to us ready to go into robotics. And that's the next phase that we're looking at. So we receive critical information in regards to how we can improve our programs and then prepare the student to spin out and either, again, go to the industry or go on to higher education. Well, you've got a slide here I don't have. How did you do that? Oh, well, it speaks for itself right there. The salaries and wages that we have at the institution is $8.4 million. She's pretty sneaky. I don't know where you got her, Commissioner, but that was pretty good. However, there's a magnifier to that, and all that you know, everybody knows that when you take a dollar and it spins out into a community, it ratchets itself up several times as it goes around. So Helena College, within the impact of our region and community, is an $18.1 million benefit to the community. And I think that's no small chunk of change. Okay, now you're back on track. Okay. Couple things I want to point out here on the mission. Comprehensive to your college. I think President Karras did a great job, and I won't go back and reiterate what she said. I think she did a great job in explaining what a comprehensive community college is. I would want to emphasize to the board that within the MUS system of the 8 campuses, you have 2 very strong comprehensive community colleges that embody all the tenets of what a community college is. And I believe those embedded colleges are working towards that direction also. It's a work in progress. But you do have 2 autonomous community colleges, if I can use that term, community colleges in Great Falls College and Helena College, who really strive to be that embodiment of what we do for our community and region to prepare those individuals who want to receive an education and either go into industry or to further education. Again, we meet first the local needs of our community, and then second, the needs of the state and then nation. Our vision statement, a couple items to point out here. We're responsive. We need to be responsive very quickly. And so in our processes for developing education or our processes in which we develop just-in-time training has to be, by nature, extremely quick. The faster the better, because business and industry is saying, I want it now. I can't wait 6 months to a year to get a program in place. I need it now. And so we work very diligently to make sure that we can meet that need. We are a regional provider, and we're comprehensive in nature. We have some programs with our public school system and our ABE, which is now HiSET, and our GED programming. That's on our campus. We have a program called Access to Success, which is a graduation program for high school students. And I have mentioned that before several times. I want to report to you, as of this last graduation, which was a couple weeks ago, 225 students have graduated with high school diplomas through the Access to Success program. And I'll remind you that these are students and individuals that even the public school district is not sure where they're at. They're couch surfing, they are living on their own, they're living in cars, there could be anywhere. We network through these students to find these students. And with that partnership with Helena School, we're able to bring them in, get them graduated, and on to higher education. And you'll have seen many of these students on your campuses. 225 of them. I think that is no small feat, and it's a great partnership, and I think good things are coming out of that. Our core themes connect directly to our mission and our vision. We provide access and support, we demonstrate academic excellence, and we strengthen the community. Now, those are terms in which we expand on within our core themes, and we look at the whole institution holistically in which to accomplish them. These match up with our strategic plan, and they also are components in which we are looked at in regards to accreditation, and we have to show that we're meeting these things through the assessment processes of the institution. Several years ago, we put together a strategic plan for the institution. It has 6 components to it, which are the core themes are embedded in, the mission is embedded in these 6 items, and so is our vision. This is a document that we visit on a yearly basis. We spend time assessing, determine where we're at, and it's a living document. It's not a strategic plan that is created, then put on the shelf, and then 8 to 10 years later, we pull it off to see whether we accomplished it. We spend a great deal of time putting together our community, both within the community and the community of the college, to make sure that we are addressing these 6 items as we go down the road and do our work, such as our budget process. When we put together our budget, you can go to the next slide. When we put together our budget and assessment process and planning as a part of the strategic plan, we make sure that those 6 components in our strategic plan are part of the budget process. If we can't connect our budget and expenditure to the strategic plan, it doesn't get spent. If we cannot connect our core themes to that budget and the strategic plan, then it doesn't get done. Those are the things that we connect together to make sure that we're meeting the requirements of Northwest accreditation, and that we're doing a check and balance on ourselves to make sure that we're heading down the right road and providing for the needs of our community. Our strategic plan, as I said, is centered on the student, and that's what this diagram shows you. At the heart of the institution is the student. And oftentimes we'll ask ourselves when we're having a conversation, how does this affect student, and how does it benefit student? And if it doesn't, we need to ask ourselves, should we do this, and why would we do this? Do we need to modify our strategic plan if this does affect students, and then bring that into play? So as you can see, that we wrap around all the resources of the institution, all the different committees and groups and organizations of the institution is wrapped around the student, and that's our major focus. Now, what's our next steps? To further the mission of Helena College and to meet the requirements that our community is wanting, we have created a strategic planning and assessment committee to make sure that we are on target in the direction we're going. And recently, we put together a recruitment, retention, and completion committee to make sure that we can meet the needs, again, of our students. And I'm sure there is budgetary implications in that. But we need to figure out if we're removing all the barriers that we possibly can as an institution to help students graduate. Now, I know the bottom line for graduation, a student has to make some decisions. And they will, based on their decisions, will determine whether or not they actually finish a certificate, a degree, graduation, or what it is. But our role as an institution is to reach out and to remove every possible barrier that we can that prevents them from graduating or completing their goals. And so that's what we're doing. That's the direction that we're heading. And we feel pretty excited about the activities and events in which we're a part of at Helena College. We feel very privileged to be a part of the system, to work with Deputy Commissioner Seck on the initiatives that he is working on with the system. And we think an integration between ourselves and the system will only make us stronger and provide for the needs of our community. At that point, I'd entertain any question that you might have.
Questions? Regent Johnstone?
Thank you, Regent Kraus. This is a question, I think, John, for you. What's the role of the Commissioner's Office in these mission reviews?
Mr. Chair, Regent Johnstone, we work very closely with each of the campuses with respect to their comprehensive mission expansion as we presented to the board in March. We also work with the campuses on providing assistance or guidance if needed with respect to the strategic planning process or the mission development process. The mission and core themes that Dean Bingham presented to you today is really a local effort that's based on the comprehensive 2-year mission that the board approved 3 years ago or 4 years ago, which basically has 5 tenets: university transfer, workforce development, remedial education, lifelong learning, and community development. So how the campuses work to develop their respective mission, vision, and core themes is really a local effort.
So should we conclude that you've essentially endorsed it, that you've reviewed it, and that you're supportive of
Absolutely,
it? It's
yes.
consistent with the overall strategy?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions from the regents? Yes, Major Robinson.
Thank you, Chair Kraus.
Regent Major Robinson.
I get it all the time. Dean Bingham, I wanted to ask a couple questions. One, I was wondering, with all of the work that Dr. Seck has been talking about with the mission and vision that was, or the reorganization of the 2 years, and especially how it affects Helena College, have you seen that's basically the basis for this? Has there been much change from all of that effort that was done to get to this point, or is there any adjustments that have been made this last time around to your mission, to the core values, or the vision at all?
Well, Regent Robinson, the mission, vision, and core themes of an institution are 50,000-foot level concepts. And everything that we're working on with Dr. Seck out of the Commissioner's Office dovetails with those concepts. And so it's very easy to fit these things in. And I wouldn't say it's an expansion of a mission, but it's a support of that mission. And we're able to both support the work that's being done in the Commissioner's Office or coming out of the Commissioner's Office and vice versa. And so it's a dovetail. It's not a this or that, but it's a dovetail. And I wouldn't say we've expanded the mission. The mission's always been there for what two-year colleges really are. Our goal is to make sure that we are meeting that mission and that we are meeting the needs of the community. And everything that's been happening and work we've been working on with the Commissioner's Office supports that.
Okay, thank you very much. I certainly have seen over the years how you have really stayed true to those values, and I think it really has paid off in how effective Helena College is. The other thing I just wanted to make a comment about, if I could, is that, you know, it's really refreshing to see how certainly you can tell you collaborate with your colleagues, with the other campuses as well, utilizing one another's resources. I think that's exactly what the board has been about since I've been on here and before I came on, about that collaboration, because it makes our whole university system more effective that way. So I want to compliment you on that and how you work effectively. The only other thing I'll say, just as a comment, since you borrowed the structure of this from Dean Wolfe, this is your lesson Your homework for today, I guess, is there's one tribal college missing on there, so I'll let you guys determine which one is missing there.
I'll let Dean Wolf know that. Thank you.
Other questions? Any other questions? Yes, Regent Albrecht.
Regent Krause, Dean Bingham, I'm curious if you feel like you have the ability to respond as quickly as you need to workforce development needs within the current structure.
Am I getting red? Yes.
Yeah.
And, let me elaborate on just that comment. Resources are always difficult to come by. And we can have a request from an industry that we've never even done before. I mean, we had a request from an industry to come in and do some technical measurement training using blue light instead of infrared. That's relatively new, and that's really new for us. So we have to quickly try to mass those resources and make that happen. Those resources generally come internally to respond to industry, and we may work with our colleagues around the state and see if there's anybody doing anything like that. But those resources come internally, and then we work with business and industry to develop a financial structure in which to accomplish that goal. So we generally don't tap into the university system financial structure to meet the needs of business and industry. We'd have to have a pot of money sitting out there that you can just go to and say, I need to draw this down and make this happen. So we have to work within business and industry to support that financially and then make that training happen. It's a good model. It's a model that works across the country. If the university system had unlimited resources, that would make it a lot easier, but it doesn't make it impossible because it's not there. So do we have enough resources? That's a day-to-day question. That's a request for training day-to-day question. And what we simply do is take a look at what the need is and then work with industry to make that happen, utilizing their resources and their personnel oftentimes in which to pull off that training. So the answer to that question is yes, we do, but it comes generally from that industry in which we're providing that training for.
And I would just add with, have you seen success with apprenticeships with that partnership investment from business as something that you can move forward effectively? I mean, it really seems, when we look at trends across the country, that if we can return to those apprenticeships and effectively place those students for a longer-term placement, that's really going to be a win-win.
Yeah.
Are you seeing some success in that area moving forward?
Yes, we are seeing some success in that area. We put together an apprenticeship program in sheet metal trade, and that was directly in response to industry's request. They came forward with personnel, they came forward with some funding. We leveraged TACT money, we leveraged other federal resources in which to create or to buy the equipment needed to do that. But the real partnership in that is between the institution and an employer. If you do not have the OJT connection, on-the-job training connection, then you really can't function in an apprenticeship style. You probably have to call it co-op or something else. But a true apprenticeship, you have to have that partnership in which to make that happen. So we've seen some success in that area. We are exploring right now an apprenticeship in working with the state of Montana for some of their employees to see if we can move that philosophy of apprenticeship into that particular modality or skill set, which is not traditional when it comes to apprenticeshipping. And so I think what you're going to see over time as we can figure out the connection between college and employer, you'll see more of that apprenticeship happening. But in a three-legged stool, if you only have two legs, it doesn't stand very well. And the three legs are the college or the educational institution, the employer who will provide on-the-job training and funding. Somebody has to pay for that too. And if one of them's missing, then it's darn near impossible to make that happen. And we're expanding that out. We're testing the waters and putting those partnerships together in which to make that happen. We're seeing some success for it. But it's not, I wouldn't say that's coming leaps and bounds. It's something that the community also has to embrace, a community of businesses and industries.
President Engstrom?
Thank you, Regent Kraus, members of the board. I just wanted to share an observation with you relative to Helena College. I make formal campus visits to the affiliate schools on a semester-by-semester basis. And in recent visits, Daniel has made sure that I talk to community members as part of those visits, a breakfast or a lunch or something like that. And I just wanted to communicate to you how enthusiastic the community has become relative to Helena College. They were so congratulatory of the work that Dean Bingham and his colleagues have done in being responsive to community needs, being a part of the economic development scene in Helena. So it was a very noticeable change in that attitude in these past couple of years that I have observed. And I just wanted you to know that that part of the mission, serving that community, I feel is going extremely well in Helena College. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Engstrom. I think several of us in Major has talked about it. Our Regent Robinson has talked about it. You know, he's just sitting here by me. What can I tell you? About, you know, this progression that we've gone through over the years, the Helena VOTEC. I remember that very well. And then also having to pay $1 if I ever called it that. And just the progression of what has happened in the two-year schools from then till now. And I think you guys are a very shining example of that. Thank you for a great report.
Thank you.
So before we get into the next thing, just a couple of minutes. Always dangerous to give one of these to a politician. And I know we're a little bit behind, but I think it's just Dr. Seck talked about my passion. It is here at this institution and with this college's president that I started that passion. That meeting was at Dr. Seck's insistence that I go to that thing, right? And so the two of you here and in this valley sort of completes the circle for me on my last meeting, and you guys were a lot of my inspiration. Jane Baker was a little bit of it. Brian Schweitzer and Mary Moe are part of that inspiration that got me here. You know, I look at the next three things that come up, okay? The dual enrollment, dual credit, dual enrollment, math pathways, Ed Ready, last meeting's prior learning assessment. None of those things are particular to two-year schools, right? They're not just two-year schools. And so that passion is not just for, and this committee has not just been about two-year schools. It's been about higher education, and that really is my passion, the belief, the power of higher education to change individual by individual our state. You know, you all of you out there with master's degree and PhDs, you know, you are the smartest people on the blue ball, and we have turned the future over to you. And I believe, you know, our success in front of the legislature, or our success, the success that you're hearing from Flathead College or from Helena College, that really is proof that people are making that bet on you as well. I listened to President Karras talk about no tuition and fees for the Running Start program. Listen to her talk about being nimble and innovative, relevant to the employers and the economy, relevant to the community, relevant to the students, affordable with a focus on the non-traditional students. Those are all things that we've talked about as as strategies and tactics for the university system, and they're happening in the laboratory that we call the two-year schools. The two-year leadership met yesterday, I think, all day, and now they're back again all day, and I just applaud their dedication to what it is that we've said we've wanted over these last 3 years or 4 years, almost 3.5 years, and what it is they've taken to heart. So thank you very much for that. Very much for that. I really appreciate it. I think when we changed the names, when we changed the way they fit into the university system, we brought 2 years. We brought 2 years much closer to the 4 years in terms of academic rigor and as a choice for the people of Montana to attend to improve their lives, and much more credibility maybe than we used to have. And I really appreciate sort of the full involvement of the 2 years in the Regents' instructions and guidance. So thank you so much. You're the laboratories for everything we're doing. With that, Dr. Seck, we will go over the first one of these laboratories, dual enrollment report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just also want to say thank you to Dean Bingham, Dr. Runge, and the faculty and staff of Helena College for their fantastic work on the last item. Expansion of dual credit opportunities for Montana's high school students has been a priority of this board, the governor, and the commissioner for the past several years. In fact, last May, the governor and commissioner announced a significant effort, the Credit for Credit teacher incentive program, designed to expand dual enrollment, dual credit opportunities in our high schools taught by high school teachers. Immediately following the board meeting last May, we hired Amy Williams, who is the dual enrollment coordinator for Gallatin College, to work for the commissioner's office half-time to really spearhead and lead this effort. And she has done a magnificent job, and she is here today to provide this board with an update on the work of the past year.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and the rest of the members of the Board of Regents, I'm excited to be here again in front of you. It's been since September, since the last time I've been able to give you an update on dual enrollment. I have lots of exciting news to report, but I promise I'll try and keep it brief. It's difficult to report right before lunch, right? So, next slide, please. Here are our enrollment figures for the last 3 academic years. No surprise, dual enrollment is growing in the state of Montana. As you can see, this is basically a linear trend, and I've done the math for you. We're a growth rate of 21%. That is very notable, and I'll tell you why. That's 3 times the national average of growth rate for dual enrollment engagement. So Montana is gaining ground very quickly, rapidly, and that keeps our dual enrollment coordinators very busy. Of course, all of this kind of growth in a program that, as you've heard throughout the morning, requires very close and relationship-building collaboration between secondary and post-secondary education, relies on a dedicated team, and we have that here in the state of Montana. We need that because we need our students to have good, solid advising, access to the services they need. We need our faculty to feel invested and connected in this program. And we need our high schools that have made the commitment to deliver our rigor of our content in their classrooms. We need them to feel supported where they need it. All of that happens because of this network of high-quality dual enrollment coordinators, Big Sky Pathways coordinators, and registrars, sometimes at some campuses, all 3. So I'd like to recognize this growth, but particularly their work in that growth. The people that worked most closely, boots on the ground in this program, are Ryan Gibson, Suela Chella, Garth Slight, Jan Hartman, Linda Hansen, Colette Thomas, Jennifer Shade, Jan Clenard, Rock Turner, Jennifer Youngbear, Holly Haas, Randy Bachmeyer, Dina Wagner-Fossen, Charla Murja, Bernie Phelps, and FVCC has an outstanding staff member who is really a dual enrollment and Big Sky Pathways guru, Beth Romaine. These are the people that I'm fortunate to work with, often on a daily basis, and we talk as a group about every 2 weeks. and share best practices. We discuss emerging trends both in the state and nationally, and we talk about the business day-to-day of how to get our jobs done. It's important for all of us to note that dual enrollment is often a student's first touch with higher education. It falls on the backs of these dual enrollment and Big Sky Pathways coordinators to ensure that that first experience with post-secondary builds positive expectations and outcomes for their future and helps them gain real-world college-going skills that they'll use hopefully and carry forward, hopefully in the Montana University system. And that's all in addition to the academic knowledge that they're gaining through taking these courses. So that's how we're growing, and that's why we're growing. Let's talk about where we're growing. This is our program reach currently for this academic year. This academic year, we had students from 107 public and private high schools taking a course either at their high school or online. Notably, this is about a 25% increase from what we saw over the previous academic year. As you can see, we're covering a fairly wide range of the state, from our smallest rural schools all the way to our largest AA's. Although this slide and the previous slide show broad and increasing participation in Montana dual enrollment, small schools in Montana still have a disparity in face-to-face dual enrollment options. I'm sure this comes as no surprise. And no surprise either that face-to-face engaging dual enrollment in the high school is what is most requested by students and their parents. Certainly, online options are filling the void, but it behooves us as a system to make changes and target our efforts in ways that we can bring this outstanding opportunity to all of our students in Montana. The good news is there are lots of ways we can and are already doing that. Let's see. I would say also that the ways that we're doing this is probably a more systemic approach than anyone else that I have engaged with around the country as well. And I think that's notable and it's also laudable. So what does it mean when I say we're doing it more systemically? So, when I spoke to you last in September, I discussed a grad credit availability survey for the MUS to assess whether the grad credits that teachers need to be credentialed to do dual enrollment are there and available. There were some deficits that were found. I'm happy to report that we're filling those holes. Our four-year campuses have stepped forward, some of them very rapidly doing so, and in short order have delivered to us face-to-face, summer offerings, hybrids between online and then online content. We've got them posted on the MUS site. This is part of basically a screenshot of the options that are available to teachers. We've seen great movement in computer science, in mathematics, and writing. And because we're approaching it systemically, instead of just throwing a scatter of here are the high needs areas out there, I'm communicating with people across the MUS and saying, okay, this is the next content area we want to focus on. Does your campus want to pick that up? No? Would your campus like to pick that up? It avoids diluting the market as a way to look at it. So I have particular thanks to give for the people that have stepped forward to help make the MUS the first choice for our teachers seeking to increase their education. Kevin Nemeth at MSUB, John Paxton, MSU Bozeman, Curtis Biggs, and the Deans McLean and Evans at Bernie Phelps, and Dr. Hillary Reiser at Montana Tech have all stepped forward to assist with this. Hand in hand with that, Dr. Seck mentioned that we've got the dual credit incentive program, very popular with our teachers that are delivering content in their classrooms. We awarded more than 1,000 credits to more than 190 different instructors in the first year. And it's very popular, bringing excited, engaged instructors back to our campuses, into our classrooms, and often they're taking these classes that have been designed specifically for the purpose. So it's a very nice positive feedback loop, increasing student opportunities by supporting teachers and helping financially make that more viable for them. Montana, as you have already heard amply today, has some outstanding great dual enrollment advocates. We've got the governor, we've got the lieutenant governor, we've got Commissioner Christian, we've got the superintendent. Deputy superintendent has said a lot of wonderful things about our program and is a great supporter. And the leadership of Deputy Commissioner John Seck has been forward-thinking and enthusiastic and has really done a great job running point on this. All of these advocates have been outstanding and have helped support our program, which makes our job at OCHES, or our job at OCHI even easier when we look to go out, communicate with the public, and increase knowledge of this high-value program. We've been doing that in a variety of ways, but I'd like to highlight one outreach project, which was the Dual Credit 411, which took up a significant chunk of my work life in this winter. It was a 9-week webinar series. The webinars were very short, 10 minutes with a topic-based presenter, followed by 10 minutes Q&A, then everybody was out the digital proverbial door. So the topics and the presenters varied each week. They covered the most commonly discussed and questioned topics, things like teacher credentialing, how to start a program, how to best advise students, what we wish students knew. We had everyone from the 50,000-foot view with the national policy advocates all the way to people in the trenches with high school counselors and dual enrollment coordinators. Very popular, very well received, had more than 200 secondary and post-secondary attendees, a majority of which attended 4 or more sessions. So I think by the end we called them the usual suspects. So there were 9 total, and if you missed them, we've archived them. You can find them at mus.edu/dual credit. Just look for the 411 link. Next slide, please. So, student success. Why are we doing this? Why is there so much effort to increase dual enrollment? Well, I think if you've been sitting in this room, you've got a good insight into that. But in case I'm not preaching to the choir at this point, there are several significant reasons for why dual enrollment is a good investment for our colleges and our system. This year, more than 14,000 different credits were taken by dual enrollment students, more than 4,000 dual enrollment students across our state. This represents a real, tangible, solid start on a post-secondary degree or credential before a student even leaves high school. That is notable, and it is significant. What is also very significant, particularly to the students and their families, is the cost savings associated with that. These students pay half-price tuition. At this institution, if they're in the district, they pay nothing for their first 6 credit. That is amazing, and it's a great opportunity for students. The Lieutenant Governor has worked across the state for the last couple of weeks promoting this, and we had 3 different media events here. One was here in the Flathead Valley, Billings, and then we also had one in Missoula. And the presentations featured senior students that had engaged in dual enrollment talking to sophomore students that were just about to come of age to enroll in those classes. There are no better advocates for why someone should enroll in these dual enrollment courses than someone who is just about to graduate. They're looking at college, and they've gained so much through that experience. They're the best people to talk to these sophomores. They really should, I should hire them as a group to come with. Every one of these events closed with discussing the cost savings, which resonates with families. I used to hear it a lot from parents, but now it's on the forefront of students' minds as well. So we closed these events with discussing the cost savings piece, and that's something that is really celebrated and should be celebrated. Next slide, please. Because as a state, and you can see here, Deputy Commissioner Tyler Trevor was kind enough to compile these numbers, our students and families saved nearly $3 million in total tuition by taking these classes as dual enrollment students as opposed to taking them as college students. You can see some of the top high schools. Dean Wolf has been doing a lot of work at her program in dual enrollment, has a lot of students served. Sentinel is doing a lot of work. You can see that there are a lot of students getting a lot of opportunity out of this program. Next slide, please. But the benefits of this program, for anyone who knows me, works with me, or even talks to me probably for 5-10 minutes, know that the thing that I hang my hat on is not the financial piece. Although it's a great soundbite and it's something that parents are definitely keeping in mind. The thing that we need to keep in mind as colleges and as a university system is what it does for our students, and that benefits us. Dual enrollment directly benefits our colleges and universities by delivering to us better prepared students. They make better choices when they come to us because they are more knowledgeable about our programs, our practices, the hidden language of higher ed, the demands of college. Now we have data to support that, also thanks to Deputy Commissioner Tyler Trevor. This slide shows key student success indicators for a cohort of dual enrollment students and their peers that were non-dual enrolled in their previous year. As you can see, dual enrollment students have a 16% higher rate of first-year retention. They take and complete more credits in their first year, and they have higher first-year GPAs. All of this indicates that our dual enrollment students are more likely to complete their degrees and will likely do it on time. This is something that several large, rigorous, statistically robust longitudinal studies have shown nationally. Now we've got our own set of data underway. So really, as a state, we've only scratched the surface from an enrollment standpoint for engaging students in the program. Depending on how you slice the data, we've got between 8 and 10% of high school students engaged in dual enrollment. So there's a lot of room to grow in this high-value program. Our approach to doing this includes continues to be increased communication and coordination. We've got great partners in secondary, as you've heard reiterated. This entire program hinges indeed on having great partnerships with secondary. OPI is a great advocate to work with. We're working more and more with SAM and school administrators, presenting more at MCEL and MEA MFT and Montana ACT, just so we can get the word out. That work continues and will be ongoing until, as I think Regent Krause put it last time, no one asked, is that like AP? We dispel that myth, right? So that continued communication with secondary administrators, teachers is a very important part, and increasing it when we have opportunity and availability as well. Development of increased cohesive public messaging, particularly web messaging, is another priority for this. And cohesive, coherent messaging that's not entrenched in eduspeak, something that resonates with all students, whether they've come from families that have attended colleges for many generations or it's first generation attending. We're working on that. And then also equally important, working with coordinating between existing student programs and existing student support programs like Big Sky Pathways, which you've heard about from Deputy Superintendent York today, or working with programs like ETS, Educational Talent Search, Gear Up, even Ed Ready, which you'll hear about in a little bit. I would add also a concerted effort across the system to increase career and technical education dual enrollment options in our state is absolutely a priority. It only makes about 25% of the dual enrollment courses up, but it's a really important piece in engaging students in our 1- and 2-year degree programs and also addressing the skills gap for the state of Montana. And it also has proven and demonstrated value for students for engagement in high school and high school graduation rates. So, you've heard today that we've got a lot of great collaborators and partnerships out there existing. The goal is to continue to grow that, increase opportunities for Montana students, because this is a high-value program with proven results. Lots of great things are in process. Lots of great things are on the horizon. I hope I've left enough time for questions.
Chairman Tuss.
Thank you, Chairman Krause. I just want to say congratulations. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to everybody involved in this initiative. During an era when we're talking a lot about affordability and time to degree, this is something that's moving the dial in that regard. If you read the fine print on this, we saved Montana families. If I get this correctly, we saved through this one initiative, Montana families, $3 million this year through this dual credit initiative. That's not chump change. That's real money. And I also want to say our partnership that Mr. York talked about this morning so eloquently with our K-12 folks is really paying off, I think, for Montana families and the taxpayers of this state too. So congratulations to everybody involved in this, and let's keep focusing on this. This is a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Tuss. Regent Johnstone.
Thanks, Chair Krause. I'm very impressive. I would second Chair Tuss's comments, but could you comment a little bit on whether or not we're seeing any impact of the program on students who would be lower performing students, but for the program when they get to college? I mean, we see the difference between a 3.1 GPA and a 2.8 for students that aren't entering. Do we have any sense that there's some self-selection here, that higher performing students are entering the program, or are we seeing any impact on students who might, without the program, be lower performing?
Mr. Chair, Regent Johnstone, members of the board, that's an excellent question, and it's one when you look at the national level research that has talked a lot. Are we talking about the academic high flyers? So of course, naturally, they're going to have a higher level GPA when they enter and matriculate into the colleges than, let's say, the average cohort? Or is this really a bump that's resulting from this program? We don't have state-level data, but I have a really good idea how to get after it. And it would just be breaking down the incoming student data based on high school GPA and looking at who took dual enrollment. So let's leave it at to be continued. When we look at it on a national level data finds that this program has a substantial impact on not just engaging, but performance of students, particularly biggest gains in low socioeconomic and first-generation attending, but also in areas with students that are at risk, at dropout risk, and having performance issues. It's really that, I see Steve York nodding his head, it's really that relevancy piece that I know everybody talks about, but really that's a hot topic in K-12 and for good reason. Students, and that's another reason why I think prioritizing growing career tech ed is also an important part of this, is engaging all students, and career tech ed does a great job of doing it in real world relevant learning. But, so I'll say, to be continued, I know how to get after that data. I have to look to a partner in crime to get that data, but on a national level, the answer is yes, absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I just blanked. Steve York, thank you. You want to answer that too? That was a senior moment there.
Chair Kraus, my wife does that every day. So, I want to just give a little perspective to what's been accomplished when you look at numbers. 107 high schools pleasantly surprises me. I'm shocked that we're in that many schools. That is all creeping up on 2/3 of the high schools in the state. And why that is really important is when you look demographically at how our schools are laid out when it comes to numbers, you find some really interesting things. We have about 317 school systems. Sometime, if you want to know the difference between a school system and a district, I'll tell you. If you take the top 13, top by numbers, the largest 13 school systems in the state have over 50% of the student enrollment. The bottom 302 make up the other 50%. So when we're reaching out to 107 high schools, and we have 14 high schools that are at 1,000 students and above, we're getting into some pretty small schools. And that, I think, is a great credit to what you've done. I'm surprised by that and very pleased. Thank you.
So I wanted to add a couple of things maybe. I know you said them and it's so true, and anybody that, if you want to ask Chair Tuss about our experience and Helena about if you can just get your junior or senior in high school to take these dual enrollment, dual credit courses, it makes senior year relevant again. It's not just a year to take off. Not advocating that, but it makes senior year relevant again in very different ways. And once you prove to yourself that you can succeed in a college course, a regular college course, not an AP course, not the high flyers taking the AP courses, but anyone taking that first year of math or that first year of English or whatever it might be, if you can prove to yourself you can make that, that's what makes the magic in those numbers, and also addresses some of what happens to high school students that just simply decide not to finish or to watch their GPAs dwindle. It makes high school more relevant, and it makes college more possible and more likely. So that's the way I'd say it. Other questions? Regent Williams.
I definitely want to echo that statement. I really liked what you said about building positive expectations of higher education. I think it can sometimes be daunting, and I really like how you phrased that. I had a question. So you had mentioned that about 8 to 10% of high school students are engaged in dual credit, and then you had also mentioned that we're growing at about 3 times the national average. I was just wondering if you could compare our participation rates to the national average.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Regent Williams, rest of the board. Okay, so I can't give you the national average for engagement, but I can tell you what the highs and the lows are. So the highest, the one where I'd love to see us go, is Iowa, 50%. Half their high school students have have taken a dual enrollment class by the time they complete. I think that's an admirable goal to shoot for. And what I've seen when I talk to my colleagues nationally, which I was just in DC at a national level conference, what I've seen is Montana, the way that our university system and our community colleges collaborate, communicate, and we're set up, we have an excellent working laboratory to build that. I think that's an absolute obtainable goal. Look at the growth we've gotten in the last year, in the last 2 years. I think it's been, I'll look at Tyler Trevor, 96% growth in the last 2 years. So I think the high watermark is 50% now. I think maybe we aim for that and then surpass it. I think there's nothing wrong with doing that at all. I think lowest rates of engagement are in about 5%. And those are in states that are predominated by AP.
Other questions on this topic? Or statements, questions, statements? Thank you. That I think that was a great way to, you did not delay lunch at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Seck. By the way, Chair Tuss, do you want us to endeavor to persevere? Okay. Dr. Seck.
Mr. Chair, it's my pleasure to introduce the next topic, which is an update on the Math Pathways Initiative, which has been a major area of focus on behalf of this board, the Governor's Office, and the Office of Public Instruction. Dr. Jim Herstein from the University of Montana has served as the chair of this effort for the past year, and he has done an absolutely magnificent job leading this effort. His term will come to an end at the end of June, and the task force will continue another year and will be led by a faculty member from Montana State University. So, Jim?
Thank you, and thank you to the board for inviting me to give you an update. Since I talked to you at the last meeting, the task force has had 2 face-to-face meetings and I think about 3 phone meetings. And at the last meeting, I shared with you our initial statement, giving you our charge and who's on the committee, who's on the task force. And it ended with 4 questions that we were addressing. And what I'd like to do today in a few minutes is give you some of the ideas that the task force has come up with on those 4 questions. So the document that's been circulated to the board lists those 4 questions and some of our issues. I do want to distinguish between what we're referring to as a gateway course and a developmental course. A gateway course is a course in mathematics that meets the university requirement for graduation. That is a course that leads toward graduation. Many programs require more than a gateway course, but a gateway course is sort of the first math course that a student takes that counts toward graduation. The developmental courses are very important. Many of our students take those and begin their careers at the university in developmental courses, but they all have to get to a gateway course eventually. And so a lot of what we look at is the question of where did students come from and where are they going when they take these gateway courses. We have identified 4 pathways that lead to graduation, and it depends on what program the student's in. They may be in a program that requires calculus or even beyond calculus, and those courses are pretty well defined: math, computer science, the sciences. They may be in a program that requires statistics and some pathway that leads to a statistics course, either in mathematics departments or psychology departments, or I think even sociology at UM has a stat course they require. They may be going to elementary education. Students in elementary ed usually take their own sequence of courses. Or they may be in general courses that are just leading to a graduation requirement and no additional math work required by those majors. We have found that the default for many students is college algebra or pre-calculus. And we say those courses generally lead to the calculus program. I'm not sure why anybody's terminal course in mathematics would be pre-calculus. Why would you take pre-calculus if you weren't going to take calculus? But there are programs that do require pre-calculus as a terminal course. And we found that, and by the way, in conjunction with that, the college algebra is either a prerequisite or sometimes a substitution for pre-calculus. Many times, especially in two-year programs, by default, the students are advised into that college algebra or pre-calculus course because it's all that's available. And so one of our recommendations in item number 1 to increase the success rates is to offer a broader range of gateway courses at the early level so that students aren't forced to take a course that's more than they need. We need to say, what do students need to learn statistics, and let them take that first if pre-calculus is not the appropriate course. And so that's one of the things that our committee has looked at very carefully. We also recommend, by the way, Dr. Seck mentioned that the Pathways program is a 2-year program, so it has 1 more year, but our recommendation D is that there be some kind of a group that continues this work after the Pathways task force has expired. Our second recommendation is to improve the articulation between majors and math departments. Majors need to tell math departments what math they need to be successful in their field, and math departments need to be sensitive to that and develop the kind of courses that the majors need so that students will be successful in those fields. And this may require redesigning courses that lead into those courses that majors need. But we want that improved articulation between those. Number 3, and we have done this extensively on this committee, and that is to use data to support the recommendations. There's a lot of conventional wisdom out there, and we want to make our decisions based on what actually happens. We've looked at a lot of data. Tyler from the Commissioner's Office has been very helpful. Our own universities have been very helpful at gathering data for us and letting us know. We looked very carefully at the Math 121 college algebra course. And not only how did students do in that, did they get A's, B's, C's, D's, F's, or withdraws, or whatever, but where did they come from? What courses led into that course? And where did they go from there? And how successful were they when they left? We learned a lot. This committee learned a lot by looking at data. And we recommend that this be continued. The Commissioner's Office is great at getting the data to answer the questions we're looking for. And we need people to look at it and discuss it and talk about the implications of what's going on. And the last thing is the stronger communication between secondary schools and the universities and colleges, and that is to make sure that students who are coming up out of the secondary schools are ready when they get to college to take a gateway course. That really would be the ultimate goal, is if all students were ready to take a gateway course when they got to college. I think we'd see a lot better success rate in terms of graduating from college. I'll just end by saying that this committee is going to put together a retreat in the fall to broaden the conversation. We have about, I think it's 8 or 9 of our units are represented on the task force. We want to broaden it to take our discussion to all of the units. I know they're trying to find a time when the presidents and the commissioner can be available to attend the retreat. And from that, I think a good set of recommendations will come out that eventually will hopefully lead to more college success, because students are getting into the right place at the right time when they get to the universities. And I will be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, Regent Shi.
We've been speaking this morning and earlier today about advising and its role. What's the role of advisors in making sure kids get to the right course at the right time?
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. I will point out that if you look under number 1, recommendation A, or part A, says a recommendation for improved first-year advising to ensure, first, that appropriate choice of gateway courses with a sensitivity to overplacement in college algebra. What we mean there is that students often, when they get in, are advised into college algebra because everybody thinks that's the universal course. If you haven't decided on what major you want to be, head for college algebra, because if you can be successful there, you're set, right? You're not going to have to take anything else. That's not necessarily true, because some programs require courses different from college algebra. And so we want to get the right kind of recommendations to advisors and to placement decisions when students take placement tests and so on, that get the students in the right course for the program they're going to go to. And it even extends all the way to the idea of that developmental courses could even distinguish those that are heading toward a pre-calculus and calculus program and those that are headed toward a more general ed kind of program, that humanities majors might take. There's no reason those students need to be in college algebra. And it turns out to be a hurdle, and with a fairly challenging success rate. And we'd like to avoid that by recommending students into the right courses. And we know that it's more than just math departments, because those people are being advised all over campus, and we need to get the word out. So I appreciate the question.
Is there any way to coordinate what advising is done at all of these different institutions? I mean, is there any way for us to help with that? Or I just think there needs to be some coordination on this topic, because it does seem to be sort of a sticky point for so many of our students, the math pathway.
Yeah, I think if they're, first of all, I think that advisors, people who have this role on campus, and especially general advisors, advisors of non-major, of people, undecided students, people who come freshmen and haven't chosen a major yet. I think if those kind of advisors could meet regularly with mathematics departments, other units that require mathematics, and this task force kind of thing. I think if they saw our data and saw how difficult it is when students end up in the wrong course, when we look at students who fail in Math 121, which is college algebra, we find that a very large percentage of those are not in college 2 years later. And it's a huge contributor to students flunking out of college. And I think a big difference would be if those students were in the right course the first time, rather than to have that bad experience to begin with.
I hope that our presidents and chancellors are listening to this, because I think this needs to be implemented on a college-by-college basis to make sure that that coordination happens on the campus.
I agree. I think it needs the discussion system-wide, but I think every campus needs a commitment to do that. And I'm hopeful that with things like the Pathways group, that mathematics departments will also be interested in getting students through, rather than being a hurdle that we have tended to be over the years. It's well-deserved.
Regent Robinson.
Chair Krause, thank you. Is it Jim?
That's fine.
Jim, I I was wondering, with the committee's work and the continued work that you're going to be looking at, with regards to that item number 1, I think that's really amazing. And I remember when that came to us to begin with, that the type of gateway math course may not quite match what that particular student needs within their field. I'm just curious, with the continued work you're going to do, are there other states that have discovered the same thing and are already starting to implement some type of variety of courses? And are you going to be looking into that and bringing those recommendations back?
Yes, Regent Robinson, an excellent point. The Complete College America has funded 6 states to be working at this, and we all look at what each other are doing. And some of the recommendations that we've given here for alternatives have come from other states. Some have come from here, for example, Ed Ready. But there are states that do things like, instead of requiring students to take a prerequisite developmental course, they have a co-requisite developmental course, so the students are not slowed down in the course that leads to their major. Another thing that would be very helpful, and I know that the people who are in charge of registration don't like this suggestion, but if there were courses that started, say, 3 or 4 weeks later, so that students who found themselves in courses that were over their head, now the alternative is you drop out of that course and you wait until next semester, and then you start the developmental course next semester, and then you get back into the course you need 3 semesters from now. If there could be a way for those students to start, to drop out of the course that they're not ready for and get into a course that they would be ready for, that could be completed this semester so that they could be in the right course next semester, it would be a big help. The problem, of course, is how do you reserve the faculty and the room and the time slot and the funding to start that course a month late? But we think that would be a huge improvement, rather than having students sit through a course that they're going to fail, or that they do fail, and then have to go back and do something other than that to start over again. Anybody who takes 3 or 4 years to complete their math requirement is probably a candidate for non-success. And I think math departments are now realizing that. So to answer your question, yes, we're looking all around the country, but in particular at these 6 others who are trying some of the same things we are to try to make things better. Thanks.
Any other questions? So this report, like many others, thank you so much for this report. I just envision that I think we need maybe some more math teachers. That's one. And then second, I envision a lot of voluntary participants eating bad pizza in stuffy meeting rooms to come up with the kinds of reports that you guys have provided us. So thank you very much for that service.
We do a lot of that.
Chair Tuss.
Yeah, Regent Krause, it is my thought that we should probably stop here. I know that lunch is ready for everybody, and we'll come back and we'll tackle item C, the Ed Ready agenda item, if that's okay. Now, it's my understanding that we do have a picture. We have our annual Regents picture, and that'll be in the hallway, I believe, correct? And President Karras, I believe that there's been some shuffling of where people are eating. Can you talk about that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the Regents and their meeting is still being held here. Your lunch will be in the room just across the hall behind the stairs here. All other meeting participants, because we know everybody enjoys sitting so much, your lunch is actually in our Eagles Nest cafeteria building, which is just across the parking lot diagonally from this building, and there'll be some people to help show you the way, but that's where the lunch for all other meeting participants will be.
So we will reconvene at approximately 1:45. It looks like if I got my time correct, right back here. We stand in recess. Thank you.